Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Girl Got Goals podcast with my lovely co-host, Kimberly Blalack and Marci Allen. Today, we're going to talk about intimacy and relationships through perimenopause and menopause and how that can significantly affect intimacy and relationships due to both physical and emotional changes. And I would also say mental changes. And we have a breakdown of the different groups, like physical effects on intimacy, emotional and psychological effects, relationship dynamics. And then at the very end, we'll wrap it up with what you can do to kind of help. So we were just discussing before I hit record that, there's some personality traits in your mother that, are different, and you wonder if maybe some of that's not due to menopause. And I was like, it's totally possible because we've both noticed, as women age, their personalities do change, and they can become more honest, for a better word, more vocal, more less give a damn, about other people's thoughts, opinions, and feelings. And I think some of that's just life, that you find a certain freedom when you find yourself and you start caring less about what other people think. But a lot of it can be hormones, because I've noticed in myself that hormones is a huge driving factor in my level of empathy and compassion and sadness and happiness. And, when I was on the emotional roller coaster of my cycle every month, my hormones changed, the way I thought changed. And so they are a huge driver. And if we're not receiving adequate amounts of certain hormones, then we may not feel as intensely certain emotions or certain feelings. And that can change who we are, at a very core level. And I think a lot of us come out on the other side of perimenopause and menopause really a different person. And if you don't have a supportive and accepting and understanding partner who's willing to kind of ride this change out with you, it could be detrimental. And there's a lot of divorces that happen through this period. And some of it may be that they ain't willing to put up with your bullshit no more, And some of it may be he's just an asshole and he didn't have the woman that he used to have, that benefited him in some kind of way. There's a lot of different reasons, but I can definitely see where perimenopause, menopause, that change fundamentally changes you and will fundamentally change the dynamics of every relationship in your life, not just spouses, but also children and parents as they age, aunts and uncles, coworkers, could just all be different. And then you have to learn how to navigate that, really.
My coworker says that I'm not as nice and empathetic as I used to be. I like to think some of that is that I'm tired of the BS of my customers here lately. But some of that could be true. I mean, I really had not thought about it until just now. I'm not that way in my relationships. And I'll just say it to them. I would never say it to my customer, but I will voice out loud how I feel about it more. But, you got to understand I'm in retail. I do my own finance. And it just seems like since COVID, everybody's got an excuse not to pay. Or, they come at me with bull excuses, and I know it's excuses. And, as the small business person, you just get tired of
right
them trying to play you. They try to play me, and I know they're trying to play me. And after 30 years, I'm just like, no, I'm tired of working my guts out. I get up and go to work every day. You can too. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that comes with confidence. I've seen you grow as a person, and develop as a person and have the courage to start stepping out of your comfort zone and finding your own voice. And so that does lead to you having boundaries. I just think there are certain boundaries that are healthy for everybody. And maybe as you age, it could be due to certain hormone fluctuations that you don't feel as nervous about other people's feelings as maybe you were before. And so you can draw those boundaries, or you just have, like you said, enough life experience to know that this isn't healthy. This is toxic. I need to draw a boundary, to protect myself. It's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Are the hormone fluctuations changing the way your thinking patterns, or are your thinking patterns just developing over time with age? Either way, we change, you hear about men having midlife crises, they hit a certain age and they get a younger girlfriend and a sports car, or whatever. I think we become better if we allow ourselves. Some people get stuck in the transition because it's painful. Any change you have is going to be extremely uncomfortable, like creating a diamond. You take that coal and you put it under extreme, intense pressure, and out comes something rare and unique and beautiful. And we as people are the same way. In the Bible, they use crushing the grapes, to get the wine, or pressing the olives. We have to be crushed. We have to be pressed. We have to be changed. I mean, nature shows it all over, like the caterpillar going to the chrysalis, and coming out a beautiful butterfly. I think this is that point in our lives where we were a certain way. Our 20s are just kind of getting autonomous from our parents and starting a life for ourselves. Our 30s, we're just starting to learn basically who we are. Into our 40s, we're starting to develop a unique identity. And then, bam, perimenopause hits you. And it's like, oh, you just thought you had your shit together. You thought you knew who you were and what you were about. And you thought you could manage this life. But hello, here's another level. They say new levels, new devils, or whatever. So I think perimenopause throws you into a new level personally, emotionally, physically. It's all tied together. Mind, body, and spirit. You can't separate it. So a lot of physical parallels, develop into the spiritual and mental aspect. And I think this transition period, although very painful and uncomfortable and scary, if you don't know what you're looking at, if you don't know what's happening to you, like I didn't, it just hit me like a ton of bricks one day and I had no idea what was going on. I think if you can educate yourself and prepare yourself and advocate for yourself, this can be a very beautiful process. In the end, you come out, like I was telling you before, I told Jimmy, bless your heart, when I was going through this awful dark night of the soul, this ugly transition, you probably were like, what the hell's going on? This is not what I signed up for. And he was like, yeah, but you came out better. You came out healthier, stronger, more confident, And I was like, yeah, but while I was going through it, it really must have been awful for you. And he was like, it wasn't really, because you really did it internally, And I think, like I was telling you, I think a lot of us suffer in silence. And if we can share, not really bitch or nag or complain, but just share our experiences and what we're going through with somebody else, with your spouse, with your partner, with your girlfriends, with your mom, with whoever, then it may share that burden and allow you to more gracefully go through the process. That doesn't have to be so scary, or damaging. Because it is a very, how would I put it? Like tumultuous time. It's very, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't even think of it. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah. And I think the more lines of open of communication, but we've talked about that. I love the fact that, the world is more talking about menopause and perimenopause than ever, so that at least women of this day and time and in the future won't feel like you're alone. I'm sure there were women back in the day when it was taboo to even discuss it. You didn't know if it was normal. You didn't know if what you were going through was the same thing as somebody else, because some women have it worse than others,
Oh,
and
100%.
So you're probably thinking, what's wrong with me? Is this normal? You don't even know how to describe it to somebody. And you might not have even said anything to their spouses, talking about the women that have gotten divorced is through that. Maybe because you didn't know how to explain how you were feeling, or you might not even know why you're raging. I mean, it's a little bit different, but it's like when my daughter was little, she was ADHD and had like I don't know, the doctor had said she had juvenile bipolar, but I really am not sure if that was a misdiagnosis there. But she would have like these mood swings. She would go through these rages and she would just lose it. Sometimes, literally, I'd be standing there thinking, I have gave birth to the devil's daughter. I mean, it was that bad. And when she would calm down, and a little bit later, she would always tell me I'm sorry. Or even when she got older, that she was in high school and had a cell phone, she would call me and apologize. But when she was little, I would be like, what in the world? And she'd say, I know I'm doing it when I'm doing it, but I can't stop myself.
Yeah.
And I feel like I feel like sometimes that's what women are going through. You're having this mood swing, this emotional, inside of you, and you go off and you're doing it. You're maybe saying things that's hurtful, or you're just being a bitch, but you can't control it because at the moment that's how you feel. And anything else but to blurt it out.
Yes. I think of a volcano,
Yeah.
and it's just so much pressure has built up underneath. Some situation happens, those plates shift, and that lava just starts spewing. It's just like a pressure release. And like you said, it's almost like an outer body experience. You can hear yourself doing it. You can see yourself doing it. You're like, what the hell am I doing? But you're powerless to stop it. It's just like, it has to run its course because emotions have like a peak, and they say it's like 20 seconds or something. It like peaks and then it starts falling off. But until you ride that wave, it's just unbearable, to feel it. And sometimes if you're not extremely self-regulated, you're unable to kind of step back and stay silent and ride that wave. Jimmy's the master of that. I hope to be like Jimmy when I grow up because he never reacts to anything. I've never, ever, ever in my 15 years with him ever seen him be reactive to anything. I've seen him really pissed once, but he was pushed all night long by Olivia. It started at a family Christmas party and she was being a complete bitch that night, and her and Hunter got together against me, and all night long it ended up with him throwing a cell phone at my face. And I mean, it was like a bad ordeal. And then they came to the house afterward and it just blew up into like an argument in the front yard, but he was pushed all night long, and I think his reaction was in proportion to the crime, but
Right.
I have never seen him blow up. He stays silent. He stays calm. He feels the things, but he lets it ride. Mm-hmm. And he sits back and he kind of feels it and watches it and contemplates it, and he doesn't react. Which
that's
I think is
the way Carrie is.
Yeah,
which
they're a lot alike.
I can probably think of two. I probably shouldn't say this, but I can think of two times, which of course one was on his daughter.
What is it about daughters, man?
Well, this one was a little more sensitive. This was, a personal thing, but we were going through court for custody of her, and this had been like a 2-year. I'm not going to get into all of that, but it was
something that was building.
It got really bad that night because there was a lot of emotions through a 2-year court battle, if you can imagine.
Right. I can.
And the other time was on me.
Oh, I got to hear this story.
Girl, the bad thing is I don't even remember what I was mad about. And I'll admit, I do have the personality. I can be an easygoing person, but when I get mad, I'm mad. And that's where me and my ex had a huge problem, is because he would smart off, and that's all I need. All I need is for you to smart off at me, because I'm going to come back. And two people that are like that, and we would go toe to toe, because I'm not backing down. I mean, me and Max would go toe to toe. I'm talking fight. And when I'm with somebody that's not like that, a lot of times it doesn't bring that out. But then when I get mad, I'm so mad. I want you to know how mad I am. But then yet you're just sitting over there in silence. And so like you're not reacting. And I'm trying to get a reaction because I want to say how I feel, but not just be the only one over here. Blah, 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 blah.
You don't want to be the only one like a barking chihuahua going off on everybody.
But I know I do because he'll tell me.
You. Yep, 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 yep. I can see you like barking his boy's heels.
He's like, you just sound like Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, wah, wah. So we're actually in the car and we're about to pull out of our subdivision. And evidently he had had enough of me. Evidently I had pushed it enough. And all I can remember is him saying the F word at me. And he doesn't ever do that. And I remember thinking to myself, ooh, I've really pushed him too hard. But I don't even, because he's going to listen to this. But the bitch in me, the Van Devender in me says, you're not going to talk to me like that.
Even though you know it was all your fault.
Yes.
I love it.
And I just shut up after that. But it was like, I had to just be like, oh, no.
Oh, hell no, you didn't.
But some of that come from how I was treated, though, in the first marriage of I did take a lot from him, you know, and so it was almost like I had to just be like, even though I know he would never abuse that, I think in that moment, it just had to be said along with, I have to have the last word.
I mean, for you, it was probably very refreshing to have a partner who you could express yourself with, you know, but like you said, that day you just took it a little too far.
Yeah.
And you knew when you hit that point, he shut it down. When he was done with it, he shut it down, even though you had the last word. That's hilarious. Yeah, Jimmy and I are a lot the same. He has never reached that point with me, but at the same time, I'm a verbal processor. I'm an emotionally reactive person. I will react. I will voice my opinion and ride that wave. And then if he just doesn't react and doesn't respond, that wave just subsides. And I go on about my business. You know, it's just, and I think when we first got together, like you said, I'd always had reactive partners in the past. When I blow up, I expected somebody to blow up back at me. And it was just kind of that back and forth exchange. And when he didn't, I almost didn't know what to do with myself. Then my actions and my words are staring me in the face. It's almost like he was a brick wall and it bounced back at me. And I was like, Marci, you sound like a complete idiot right now. What are you? I can hear myself, you know, but like we said earlier, I couldn't stop myself. You know, the pressure needed to be released. And I think a lot of women are more verbal processors. We are more emotionally inclined and we are more likely to react to something. And so he really helps me because he's like a sounding board for my emotions. I throw them out. He shuts them down. They come back. They hit me in the face and I sound like a dumbass. And then I'm like, okay, maybe that wasn't the best way to react to that. But he also gives me the safe space to be able to feel my feelings and express how I'm feeling without judging me. You know,
Yeah.
It's so harsh to be judged for every little thought that you have.
But, you know, sometimes, like, I don't remember what I was angry about, but obviously I don't scream. We've never had a screaming match. My voice might be elevated if I'm annoyed about something or just inside feel like I'm just going to, I got to say it. For the most part, I would say, I just tell you, you know, like, we need to do this, or, you know, we need to get some things done around the house, and, or, you know, or usually I just discuss how I feel. I'm just going to say it. I don't just come at you. I only come at you if you come back at me, if that makes sense. And because he doesn't. But sometimes it would be nice to just discuss it, or like, bless his heart. He doesn't like confrontation. He doesn't like communication. He's not the best communicator. So he'll listen to how I feel, and he's very empathetic with how I feel, but there's not a discussion about it. It's just,
Yeah, I get that.
you know.
I get that. Jimmy has had to learn over the years, like, I need to know how you think. I need to know how you feel. You know, you need to communicate your emotions to me because this is a two-sided relationship, you know, and it doesn't really work when I'm just constantly talking and I'm constantly telling you how I feel, you know, and he's been willing to do the work in himself to make that change to accommodate me. So that's very helpful. Mm-hmm. Whereas a lot of men may not be able to voice their emotions or may not be willing to do the work because it's very uncomfortable, you know, and I'm sure as we change and our needs change, they have to also change to kind of adapt to our needs, for lack of a better word. And some men may not be able to do that, you know, or women, whoever your partner is. Some partners may not be willing to change who they are to accommodate the new person you are. And, you know, we'll get into that a little more and later when we discuss relationship dynamics. But it's so important.
Well, I was going to say, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say, a while ago, I wanted to bring up that point, though. It, you know, when talking about when we get in those moods and we spew things, sometimes we need, like, you know, talking about the communication, we need to, you know, relay the to them that the moods that we're going through is not always personal. You know, it's just, we don't even sometimes know what's going on, and it's a transition, or, you know, or if we're acting a certain way, it's going to be something you have to communicate, because some people just want their space. But, like, you know, some women will be like, I just want my space. I want you to go away. I just need to process this. You need to be able to communicate that to your spouse, because I'm not like that. If you walked away from me, then I'm going to be upset because I'm going to take it personal.
Right, I need
more of love and attention. I'm a, as he calls it, I'm a attention whore. I'm a needy person. Yeah. I need attention. I need affection. I need, like yesterday, I said something to him, and he said, we were going to the movies, and I didn't like that my belly was showing a little bit in this shirt, but he had told me I looked okay, but I felt fat and uncomfortable. And so then we get in the car, and I tell him, I said, I'm probably going to be uncomfortable all night because I'm not feeling comfortable in what I have on. And he was just like, I said, what do you mean, I said, this is where you're supposed to insert, you look fine. He said, I've already told you that. So, see, in his mind, he's already told me that. And I said, no, this is where you reassure me again. He said, how many times I got to reassure you? I said, as many times as it takes.
Yeah, as many times as I say I don't look good, and you tell me I'm beautiful.
See, to them, they don't understand that. But I'm the type that I know that's terrible, and I try not to be so needy, and, like, not to keep bringing all that up, but I know that is past trauma. That's past marriage trauma, past childhood trauma. I know that is something in me that's not fair for him to constantly have to remember and renew. Mm-hmm. So I try to keep that in mind, and I think that's where the communication, you know, of even having them feed back to you, like him saying, well, I've already told you. So in their innocent minds, we got to not take that personal, because to a man, he's like, well, I said it once. I'm not understanding. Sometimes we got to understand a man's thought process and not take that personal.
Step outside of yourself and try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. I don't think ever in the history of our relationship, when I have had an emotional outburst with Jimmy present, has it ever been about Jimmy. It's always been the situation, or I'm nervous about this happening. I'm stressed about this happening. Like you said, I'm a planner. I have a plan in my mind, and I like to be on time or early. You know, when things start running behind in my schedule, I start to feel fear, and that causes me to sometimes get short because I'm anxious, and it's just things like that. Like I have these emotions building up, but they're never personal towards him. But, when you have these mood swings or withdrawals or, changes in libido or things like that are associated with, perimenopause, menopause, hormone fluctuations, your partner can very well take it personally or as rejection, and that causes, I think, huge rifts in the dynamics of your relationship. When I think as people, we're largely selfish. We're always in our own heads. We're always thinking about how we're thinking and perceiving the world. Like you were saying, we need to kind of step back and see how maybe our partner's perceiving the world at the time and try to have some more compassion. And that all hinges on communication. If that's one thing I've really learned throughout my menopause journey is to be able to first recognize my emotions, because in the beginning I couldn't even, they have this chart, this wheel you can Google. It's like all the different emotions that you can have. And there's like 30 something of them, it's like a lot. And I was like, first of all, I didn't even know there was that many emotions. and when I first started feeling intensely, because mine presented as anxiety, I couldn't pinpoint on that wheel exactly which emotion I was feeling. So I couldn't even interpret my own emotion. So I really had to and meditation helped me with this, just sit with that emotion and just feel it and kind of start thinking about what it was that was coming up, just allow it. And then it's like layers, then I had to get down to, okay, well, I'm feeling resentful, or I'm feeling nervous, or scared. And I started having to name my emotion, because then once you name it, then you kind of have to accept it and kind of verbalize it. If there's a partner involved, if you're in a conversation, if you're in a situation, if you can effectively retrospect and think about what you're feeling and effectively verbalize that to your partner, it gives them a different perspective, maybe, instead of just blowing up like I would tend to do, because I'm afraid that we're going to be late. And if we're late, then that other party's going to feel disrespected. If you can say that instead of just being like, well, you're always fucking late. You're always making me late. Why are you so slow? That kind of thing. It's like, well, now we're behind schedule. I'm really nervous that so-and-so is going to feel disrespected, because I would feel disrespected in that situation, and now I feel upset, or whatever. Then that partner can be like, oh, okay, well, I see where you're coming from. And, I'm sorry I took so long doing this, or it was something that couldn't be avoided, or it's okay. If we're 5 minutes late, that's what usually Jimmy
says. He's going to be like, text Kim. She's always late. She'll understand.
Yeah, it's like, not everybody has that same value. Jimmy didn't have that same value as me of, if you're on time, you're late. He runs on Jimmy.
That's Carrie. That's Carrie. And he annoys me when he says that. Now, me, I'm going to say this and everybody's going to be like, whatever. I don't like to be late. And I think some of that has come the older I got, because when I was younger and the kids were little, I was late a lot. I didn't mean to be, but I would be tired. I can't explain, and we've covered this before, but I can't explain the tiredness that I had back then with all the small children and work and everything I had going on and trying to be perfect, and my thyroid. I mean, how tired I was to get up and get things going was rough. I feel now that I don't have that every day on me, just the responsibility of the kids. Some days I'll still be tired and less motivated, but I could be places on time a little better. And I know that probably sounds dumb. So now it does bother me to be a little late, but I don't like to be, if I'm going to the doctor's office, I'm going to usually be 5 minutes early where he wants to be 15. And I'm like, why? Because that's longer I have to wait.
Yeah. Well, what if there's traffic? What if you get stuck in the wreck? It's just, I'm always planning. I'll start with like my event, and this is a rabbit hole completely besides the point, and then we got to get back home. But if I have an appointment at 8 a.m., then I'm like, okay, I need to arrive by 7:45. Well, it's going to take me 30 minutes to get there, so I need to leave
And
my
we
house by
back it up.
7:15. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm
that's
constantly adding little buffers into that to where if something happens, and mostly it's because of stress. It's because it does stress me out to hurry. It stresses me out to be late. I've learned over time, like you said, getting older, that I don't like to be stressed. I don't like to be late. So if I can factor in waking up a little bit earlier, having things ready the night before, this, that, and other, just planning better, then typically I can have an easy, restful morning, which makes my whole day go better. And I'm not late, and I'm not stressed. I'd rather be sitting there 15 minutes early, reading a book on my phone or something, and calm than coming in the door 5 minutes until my appointment and wondering, oh God, I'm gonna be late, that kind of thing. What if I go to the wrong building? What if the elevator's stuck? It's just all these scenarios. I'm always like a what if type of person.
Well,
and
definitely
I think that
if
me.
it's somewhere new, but if I'm going somewhere, I know where I'm going.
You can slide in.
I can slide in. But yes, I mean, and I think some of that came with maturity, maybe for me, like you're saying, of realizing the older I got and the more I don't know that I grew into my person. I don't even know how to explain how I felt in my 20s. I don't even know if I knew who I was.
I don't think you think about who you are or how you feel in your 20s. I think you're just really surviving.
I feel like that's just going to say, I feel like I was just surviving.
Yes.
Because I had, and I know you did too, I got married at 20. I got pregnant on my honeymoon. So I had my first child the year I turned 21, but before I was 20. We had this argument the other day, and I told Carrie, I was like, okay, well, I mean, I had her in May and I turned 21 in August. So I was literally 21, but he's like, no, you were 20. I was like, shut up. But, so before I even get out to real life to doing something, and then, then you go into she didn't sleep, and I had to take her to a sleep disorder doctor, and, just all of these things. And then by the time I'm getting her regulated to sleeping, I'm pregnant again. And I just had so many things thrown at me, and now I got 2 kids with a husband that doesn't help, don't do anything. We're divorced by the time I'm 26. I was surviving. It's all a blur to me.
Yeah. Well, your prefrontal cortex isn't even developed until around the age 25. There are certain things that you just physically cannot comprehend or do. The thought processes just aren't there until you're closer, to the 25-year mark. I say you're not even a human, a full adult human until you're 25 or later, because that was my experience. It's like when I hit 25, things started clicking for me, and I started thinking about the things I was doing. Before, I was just kind of like in my limbic system, just kind of instinctively, like we said, surviving off of, experience and habits or whatnot. And I see that in my children. Olivia's just now reaching that. She'll be 24 this year, and she just hates it. She was like, Mom, my prefrontal cortex is developing, because I've told them this, all these years, and she's starting to see it in herself now. Things that totally didn't bother her before, because she's always been a fly by the seat of her pants kind of gal, go with the flow. The universe is going to take care of me. I just manifest everything I want, and she is kind of one of those people that just fall into a bed of roses, where I fall into a pile of shit. But she has started worrying about things that are coming in the future, or things that are starting to bother her more. She's starting to plan more, organize more, and she was like, I don't like it. I like being blissfully unaware is what it is. It's not that it's not happening. It's just you're blissfully unaware of it. But I can see that starting to happen in her. And thank God she didn't get married and have kids before that point, like I did. I don't even think I was capable of making the life decisions that I was making at that point in my life, which is why I made such horrible decisions. I wasn't thinking, I wasn't planning, I wasn't prepared, I wasn't able, I was acting a lot out of trauma. Like we said, there was just those deep needs in me that I was trying to meet for whatever reason. I didn't even realize I had deep traumatic needs, but somehow they're kind of coming out. And I think that midlife and the perimenopause menopause process is almost like a second chance at revising who you are in that aspect. Like in your 20s, like we said, well, you don't even really know who you are and what's going on and all of that. And then once you reach midlife, you have had the opportunity to kind of go back and heal those things and work on those things that need to be healed. But if you haven't done that, which I hadn't completely, faced up to everything I needed to fix, I think this transition period is like a trial by fire. Fire purifies things. When you're heated, like making steel, all the impurities rise to the top and then they slough off all the impurities off the top and then you're left with the pure steel. I think the menopause transition is almost like that, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, because you're in this pressure cooker now. And whatever you haven't dealt with before, you're going to deal with it. You have no choice but to deal with it or stay stuck in the miserable cycles that you've been stuck in before. And I'm the type of person, I refuse to be miserable. I don't like to be uncomfortable. I want to find the root cause and pluck it out completely. I don't want to treat the symptoms. I don't want to live with something plaguing me, and I can't comprehend how people do it. I see people who are completely blind to their faults and their flaws and their issues. And if they would just acknowledge it, accept it, feel it, and move on, their lives would be so much better. But they just stay completely in denial about the issues and they just bury it.
Are you talking to me right now?
No. No. Do you feel convicted? I'm sorry. No, I think you've done a really good job in the past. 2 years. It had been 2 years since we've known each other.
I really think it's been longer than that.
3,
because
maybe.
I think it's been close to 3. Me and Kira were trying to figure out when we went to
on the boat,
the Olympia. No, when we went to the Olympia, and we were like, "What?" I think it was like 2021 or something.
So it was right after my first show, and my first show was November 2022. So this November will be 3 years. So it's been almost 3 years. Yeah. So in the 3 years that I have known you, you have done a lot of retrospect and a lot of growing and a lot of accepting. It's going to be a never ending process for everybody. Some people are better at it than others. I'm just the type of person to where I'm not going to bury my head in the sand and pretend everything's okay when it's not. Like I said, I'm a very root cause person. I love diving in, investigating the crap out of something until I get to the very root cause. So if you can eliminate the root, then it never pops back up. It's like picking a weed. If you just keep picking the stem, it's going to keep popping back up and you're going to have to keep picking that stem. And to me, that's a waste of time. I'm going to dig out the root if I can find the root cause. And that's what was so, I guess, transformative for me when I started having the perimenopause symptoms. Like I said, it presented itself like insomnia, anxiety, which is very scary. So when I started diving into everything in my life, from the physical aspects to what I ate, to sleep, everything, then the mental aspects, the spiritual aspects, I started digging into everything because it was so miserable. I couldn't imagine living life like that. I had to find out what was wrong. And for me, like Jimmy said, that you came out a better person. It was a very painful experience. If you would have asked me if I wanted to go through it, hell no, I would never want to go through it again. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy as far as what I felt in those moments. But looking back, it was very transformative. It was very healing, and it was very necessary for the growth in my life that I have received. And so I think a lot of times if we look at our trials in a different perspective, maybe we can, instead of being afraid and miserable and staying in that loop, maybe we can use it for good. And also, like we're wanting to do with this podcast, reach back and offer a hand to the next woman coming along behind you who doesn't know what's happening to her, or who doesn't know what's going on, or who doesn't know how to deal with these issues, and try to help them feel better and give them a voice and a place to feel safe and kind of.
Well, I definitely am a firm believer in stuff like that, like everybody's spirituality, could be different. But for me, I am a Christian, and I believe, sometimes people will say, well, why did God let me go through this? Well, God gives us the choice to make decisions. One, now going through something like this is not necessarily a choice, but certain things in our lives. But if we never went through any heartaches or any hard trials and tribulations, like, you would have never done the research. You would never come out like you're saying you came out. If we didn't go through spiritual tribulations, we would never look for God. We would just go through life free as a bird, thinking, oh, everything's easy. What do I need to pray for? What do I need to seek Him for? So if we don't have these certain things in our life, it doesn't make us try to be a better person. So,
Right.
Sometimes I feel like, it sucks.
Yeah.
But if we don't have hard times, then we don't come out or seek things better. I hated that I got married, and we talk about that all the time, that we wish we'd have found each other first. But I also tease him and say, well, I probably wouldn't have liked you then, because
Right.
he was when he was younger, he was more free than me. And even back then I was like, oh, I was so in my shell, so scared, don't drink, don't smoke, don't do this, don't. Anybody that did it, I was scared of them, and he smoked and drank back then. So I was like, I probably wouldn't have liked you. I probably wouldn't even want to be around you, because I was so nervous to even be around people like that. It was weird. But
Yeah.
So I feel like he had to go through what he did in his first marriage, and I did. And I don't understand that, because I know where the Bible says don't get divorced. So I can't explain that, but in my heart, I know that God sent him to me, and I know we met when we were supposed to. So if I had not went through the tribulations that I did, I might not appreciate him as my spouse. So I feel everything happens for a reason, even if we don't understand at that moment.
Yeah. I love that saying, because I do believe it's so true. And I heard somebody say, even if the reason is you're a dumbass, it's like, even if the reason is I'm a dumbass and I made a bad decision, you learn. It's never failure as long as you're learning. And people who are wildly successful, they try to fail faster. They're like, how can I fail faster so that I can learn these mistakes so that I can move on and do better? And I think if we had that mindset in life, especially going through menopause, this would not be as a scary of an experience. Mm-hmm. When you start experiencing menopausal symptoms, it's very jarring. It's very scary, especially if you don't know what to expect. But if you can prepare yourself, if you can educate yourself, if you can be like, okay, let me try new things. How can I fail faster? How can I get through this process? I wouldn't say faster, because some things you can't rush, but more gracefully. How can I prepare myself and be ready for this process and go through this process more gracefully? Then I think we and our relationships suffer less. Because I was thinking about this last night when I lay down to go to bed. I always start thinking about talking on the podcast the next day. And I was like, oh, I'm asleep. Half asleep, but I don't need to write this down, but hopefully I'll remember it. And I did. But it's like, I never thought about menopause. It's almost as if it would never happen to me. It's almost like it's so far in the future and nobody talks about it that it wasn't on my radar. And so, you have the very stereotypical hot flashes. I just thought when I was in my 50s or 60s, I would just have a couple of hot flashes. I would quit having a period, And then bam,
And
I'm
that
in
was
menopause.
it.
I just can't have babies. Yes. I thought it was
Yeah.
completely benign. And I didn't really think about it at all. When I did think about it, it was a blip. It wasn't even on my radar of life things to happen. But it's a very necessary, real, biological, physiological process that if you're a woman, you cannot avoid it. And so you really have to prepare yourself. I know I've said that so many times today. I feel like I keep saying prepare yourself, educate yourself, advocate for yourself. But yeah. So we talked an hour about, how it's affected our relationships. So let's dive into the outline really quick so that we can get through some of the things that we wanted to mention that we felt like was important. And so the first is the physical effects on intimacy.
Oh, yeah, because I want to talk
So
about sex.
we're talking about, I want to talk about sex, baby. Anyway, the physical effects on intimacy. Yes, we're talking about sex. So vaginal dryness and thinning. I know we talked about on one episode previously that your pussy lips disappeared. I never knew that until recently. Thank you, TikTok. I don't know who put that out there, but I was like, your vagina disappears? Like, who knew? So lower estrogen levels can reduce the vaginal lubrication and elasticity, making intercourse uncomfortable or even painful. And so even if you have a libido, which usually, you have a decreased libido when you go through hormonal changes, as most women do anyway, then it becomes painful. So now you're not even juicy anymore. And I'm just going to say it, like, we use lube because I do have that issue. It's just sometimes it's there, sometimes it ain't. And I can't tell when it's going to be there and when it's not. And now that I'm using lube, like, it feels 1,000 times better. So I just like using it every time. But it's kind of like a mood killer. It's like
Really?
used to. I feel like it is. It's like used to, you just got in the mood, you started making out, you started heavy petting, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to get too graphic. And then you just, slide into intercourse or whatever. Well, now I have this extra step. I have to, and Jimmy will do it a lot of times. He'll just go ahead and get the lube out and set it on the bed, like, before we ever start, because then our busy schedules, sometimes we schedule this shit. So it's like on the calendar, but I feel like it's such a mood killer. And they have like estrogen creams that you can just rub down there and it reverses that. But it made me stressed. It increased my anxiety. I'm estrogen dominant. So any kind of estrogen that I put, even I thought being just a cream on my body, it wouldn't affect me like that, but it did. I noticed if I used it on Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, into Wednesday, I had like this heightened anxiety. And then it would go away until I used the cream again. So that sucks.
Yeah. Well, they say that, and we talked about the hormone replacement last week, but another reason why, you can advocate for it is because, the sensitivity to our clitoris can go away with low estrogen also. And then, of course, your libido is going to go away with the testosterone. So I think that that's a lot of the problems in marriage, too, because, intimacy, men are still wanting to have sex, and then we're drawing back because we're not feeling it. You're not being aroused.
It may be painful.
Yeah. And
who wants
they
to
don't
do something
understand.
that's painful?
Yeah. And men don't understand when you say it's painful. But I was reading where, not only, do you get, we know you can get dry, but the thinning of the vaginal walls and the shortening and tightening of your vaginal canal is another reason. So, I mean, I know this is terrible, but I mean, if your vaginal canals is getting tighter and shorter, most men would be like, ooh, but just think, if he's well endowed and that's happening and then it's dry, that's painful,
Extremely,
I mean,
yeah.
so it's,
If your man's got a little dick, that's a good thing to look forward to, I guess.
look, sex could get better.
Yeah. But like you said, if they're well endowed, that's very painful.
Yeah. But you can reverse some of that by what you were just talking about, by stimulating the area, which to me would be what a lot of people do anyway, but maybe they don't. So I'll mention it. But women, there is regular vibrator use can help with that.
I was going to say, stimulate the area. Now we're talking.
Yeah. You can stimulate it with oral
Masturbation.
sex.
Oh.
Or have your
that one.
partner stroke your clitoris will work to improve blood flow. And I do believe sometimes we get out of a lot of the foreplay and men just want to go straight into it, especially like you said, with busy schedules, or if there are some people that are going through menopause that have small children. They're not all empty nesters or have older children. And so they're trying to throw that in there, and it's just a quickie. I mean, I really think quickies is probably 98% of America now.
Yeah. I mean, if you're tired and it's the end of the day, you just want to kind of, I hate to say get it over with. You just want to get it over with, get to bed. Not that it's not pleasurable, you know, because if you are achieving orgasm, it's pleasurable. If you're not, that's a whole different conversation we need to have. But it's like, if you're not, then why are you even doing it really? But I mean, you said, quickie, you just want to, you're tired, you're busy, it's at the end of the day. Usually you just kind of want to wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, you know, get it done.
And that's how, I mean, I have felt numerous times when we come home from the gym or if we got things to do. But once you get started, I mean, if he starts stimulating you that way and you really start into the foreplay, I mean, you'd really kind of,
you work yourself into it mentally.
Yeah.
I have a funny story.
Oh God.
And I think I may have told you this before because, so when I was younger, I'd get off the bus and go to my grandmother's house in the afternoons after school. And she would always fix me like a little snack or whatever. And I'd watch a little TV and then I'd do my homework. Well, she didn't have cable. She only had like 3, 5, and 10. And so there were very limited program options in the early 90s. You know, at that time of afternoon, it was like Lassie, Flipper, and something else. You know, it was like the old sitcoms. And I think there was like Lassie, Flipper, and something else. And I liked the third one, but I didn't necessarily like Lassie and Flipper, but it was first. Anyway, so I equated sex to watching Lassie. So I dreaded watching Lassie every day, but it was the only thing on TV. And I had to get through it to get to my other programs. But I always got into it. Once the episode started, I'd always get into the storyline, you know, and then I would end up enjoying the episode by the time it was done. But I like dreaded watching it every day because it wasn't my favorite, you know. And I always like tell people having sex is like watching Lassie, you know. It's like I'm not necessarily looking forward to it. I have 1,000 other things on my schedule that I could be doing that I think would be a more effective use of my time because maybe I'm not feeling like I'm in the mood or whatever. But once I'm doing it and once I'm enjoying it, and I always have an orgasm, you know, it always feels good. So I always am glad I did it. Kind of like a workout, you know, kind of like a workout. You may be dreading a workout. And
never skip sex. There's never a sex schedule session that you're going to.
Exactly. You'll never regret a workout. You'll never regret a good banging sesh. I always feel good afterward. And there's so many like good endorphins that are released and hormones. I mean, it's really healthy for you.
Well, I think it would help with, you know, I mean, that's what I had written down as far as bringing intimacy back in your relationship. Because I feel like sometimes this could be a time for you and your spouse to find each other again, especially if you're empty nesters. Because what we just talked about, when the kids are young, there's so much going on and you are tired, even though you're younger. Sometimes we miss our whole, you know, good sex period in our 30s, the highlight of women, because we're so tired from having the kids. You don't even, you know, so this is a time to bring some of that petting and arousal and back when you were in the car when you're, you know, a teenager.
Yes.
I mean, those were the horniest times ever when you feel like, oh, it's taboo. They're not supposed to be touching me. And you know, you just kind of go back to some of that, bring in some of the things that you never did before or
explore.
Now if you're empty nesters, do it all over the house. I mean, just, you could even have these conversations. I'm sure men would love to know. Ask him what he wants to do. if he's got any fantasies. I mean, if you've never done some of these things, that can bring some of that, spark back to your relationship. So it could be
Yeah.
like a good thing. And
Yeah. I was going to say,
go ahead.
many men feel and express love through sexual intimacy. Women are more emotional creatures, men are more physical creatures. And so put yourself in his shoes and think this may be how he connects with you, which is, how Jimmy and I have been. He's a very sexual person. He's not an emotional person, but somehow he's channeled that through physical intimacy. I'm more of an emotional person. My love language is quality time. So I need that quality time with you. I need to talk to you. I need to connect with you. I need to be around you. I've noticed with him traveling when he's gone, I need like a day to kind of reconnect with him on an emotional level before I'm ready to connect on a physical level, but he is very physical, tied in with his emotions. So he like feels and expresses love that way. So that's something that we've really had to work on in ourselves. He's had to give me more quality time, FaceTime, affection, and I've had to give him more physical time and affection. And I think one of our favorite places to shop together is the sex store. We love going. I mean, even if it's like looking and making fun of some of the stuff that like people are into, it can be hilarious. It could be an adventure. And I love just going through and seeing what's new, seeing what's available, seeing what's out there. We'll buy a few things, take them home and try them. And it, like you said, it does keep the spark alive, or it renews the spark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that's a very vital sex.
Yep. So physical intimacy, I'll just recap it real quick. It can be affected by vaginal dryness and thinning, decreased libido because of hormonal shifts, fatigue and sleep disruption. We talked about that being busy or being tired. I had insomnia when I went through my stuff. So, I mean, it was like sex was probably almost non-existent during that point. And weight gain and body image issues. Changes in metabolism and fat distribution can affect your self-confidence, and it can reduce how you view yourself. I know that, I had a complete mommy makeover in October of, 24? And it has completely changed my self-confidence, how I feel in my body, how I view my body. And when you're having sex, you're probably naked. And so you're on full frontal display. You're very vulnerable. So if you're not feeling comfortable in your own skin, you're not feeling sexy, then that's going to definitely translate over into your relationship. Like Jimmy and I have talked a lot about sex because it has been, different for us and was something we've really had to work through. And he's like, for men, it's not so much about how a woman looks. It's about her attitude. It's about how she's carrying herself in the moment, in that if she's enjoying it. He's like, I feed off of you enjoying what's going on. And then I feel the same way about him. If he's just relaxed and enjoying himself, then I feel more turned on by that. But if you have body image issues, you are never going to be relaxed and enjoying yourself. So that's something that I think I struggle with, even with my new body. I would say it was like 80% better, but still old habits die hard. And I think we have those images.
I would probably be willing to bet if 99% of women feel that way. And I was going to bring that up too. I seen something the other day. It was a video about the one thing men never think about during sex, and that is what your body looks like. And years ago, Carrie had said the same thing to me. We were in some position and I felt like I could see some fat or something, and just immediately, I don't know why, this one time, just immediately I got disgusted with my own self and wanted to change positions, didn't want to even be there. And I'm like, what is going on? Now, I don't know why I did that one time, but there are other times I think about what I look like. But that one time freaked me out because I was like, he's looking at this. Oh my God. So like in off season, I will feel more self-conscious. I feel like I'm a little thicker. He does, he knows what I look like when I'm thin. He's probably thinking, and he's told me that is the furthest thing from my mind, So I think we have to program ourselves that is not what they're are thinking in that moment.
Yeah. We're thinking about it.
Yeah.
If you've ever like been on top and leaned over and looked down and seen your belly and your boobies sagging, it's like, oh my God. I mean, that I have had that exact experience, that exact moment. It's like, what the hell? No. Immediately switch. That's why I love like doggy style. I love like things like that where I'm like on my stomach or like he's not facing me. I can't see him. He can see me, which is fine, and I know he can see me, but I'm not thinking about it.
But I have, that's one place that TikTok, I could kick their butts. I mean, Carrie used to say something to me about the starfish, and I thought he was the only one that called it that.
It ruined it for you.
Yes, until TikTok come out, and I seen one the other day, and she's asking her husband, what are you looking at? And he says, the chocolate starfish. Yeah, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because, my mama listens to this sometimes, but that is the position we do a lot. And I'm like, oh my God. Now all I got to think about is him looking at my butthole. I should put like a little eye back there and surprise him.
They have butt plugs that shoot laser beams. Or like little fluffy bunny tails or something like that. That would really surprise him.
Oh, shoot.
It'd be dark. You turn on your butt plug and it's shooting out like a lightsaber. Like put his eye out.
I think it would be over. He would be done at that point. Oh, gosh.
I would both be laughing too hard to finish.
Yeah. I don't even know if I could get to that point. I would already be so like laughing to myself before we could even get there. He'd be like, what is wrong with you? Nothing, baby. I have you a surprise.
Uh-huh. That's hilarious.
But, going further into what you're saying, prioritizing self-care for ourselves, we've advocated that and other things. But with this, I do believe when we're going through these hormonal changes, it just helps reduce our stress. And, of course, me and you both are big on exercise and healthy eating, but all of that is going to help with your hormones. It's going to help how you feel about yourself to get through this and, make the changes with your spouse. If your spouse needs to lose weight, needs to get healthy at something, y'all might go try to do together and then go have sex.
Right? I wish there was this little switch in my brain I could just turn off when it's time for sex. I wish I could just turn it off so my brain would quit thinking. And I wish for one time I could just act out of pure pleasure. Like pure, like just guttural, instinctual, like the animals do. Like I wish I could just feel my body and be in my body and not in my brain. And I think sex would be so much better.
Yeah. I have always told Carrie that I relate my brain as a computer. So, I'm on my laptop right now and I have 6 tabs open. And that's literally
your brain.
Probably my brain. My brain probably has 12. But
yeah.
So at all times, like I started on this and I started on this, I got all these tabs and all these things going. The grandkids are coming to town. I got to do this at work. I got, prep going on. I need to do that. All of these things are up and going. And so it's hard for me sometimes when he comes in to take that moment, like when he's being spontaneous, because in my brain was, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. Yeah. And everything has to go in this order. And if it gets out of order, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so then he'll be like, well, turn the TV off. Well, and I'm like, I got to start turning these tabs off. So me at night winding down, he can just get in the bed. We come home from the movies last night. He's in the dark in his underwear before I even got my clothes off. It's nighttime. No, I got to get in the bed. I have to turn on the TV so that my mind starts shutting down and it's like close tab, closed tab. And the longer I'm focused on something that my mind's not going because I'm watching this, that's why watching TV for me closes those tabs. And then when I start getting sleepy, it's kind of how when your computer goes in that sleepy mode.
Hibernating.
And then when he hits me or wakes me up, because now all of a sudden he's took a 30-minute nap and he's fucking horny, it's like taking that little mouse and now you've woke me up. And then once you wake it up, see, these 6 tabs are back up. Boom, 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 boom.
They're
boom.
automatic.
Yeah. And now I'm irritated. So now, no, I'm not in the mood for sex because I'm pissed off because I had really got in that sleepy mode, and that I can't make him understand sometimes. If I fall asleep on my own like that, please leave me alone. It's not that I don't love you. It's not that I don't want it. It's just that don't normally happen for me. And once you wake me up and all of those tabs open back up, that computer's screened again. Now we have sex. Now I have another hour after sex because I got to start closing these tabs again. And it's just like an ongoing cycle. If I could just shut that crap off.
Yeah.
Find the root cause to that, Marci.
Well, I was going to say, as you age, sleep becomes more elusive, and it's due to a lot of factors, and those factors are different for every person. It could be a supplement, or a mineral deficiency, a vitamin deficiency in your body. For you struggle with thyroid, and so there's compounding factors to not only hormonal shifts that, I had to do that during my transition. There was a certain sleep routine I had to hit perfectly every night, and still sleep was not promised to me. And so, like you said, if I was going through my sleep routine and something disturbed that, then I had to start all over. And that's, an hour, 2 hour long process. And now it's not so bad. Now I've learned that, like you said, I can't just come home and go straight to bed. I have to have at least 30 minutes, at least, on the couch, defragging, watching TV, doing something that I don't have to use my brain, to start kind of, and I think that's just normal for women. Yeah. And it's knowing yourself and knowing that about yourself. Like, I'm not going to expect to walk through the door at night after date night and just go straight to bed. Jimmy can, like you said, Carrie can. I can't. I don't care how late it is. I'm going to get in my sleep clothes. I'm going to brush my teeth. I'm going to wash my face, and I'm going to go to the couch. I'm going to have about 30, because we don't have a TV in our bedroom. And so I'm going to go to the couch. I'm going to watch at least 30 minutes of TV. Jimmy can nap on the couch. He won't go to bed before me, but he will sleep on the couch until it's bedtime. He calls it his napetizer. He has his napetizer before his full meal. But, I understand that about myself. And I feel like the less you try to force it, the better it works. Because if I did just try to walk in and go straight to bed, I would be laying there wide awake. Like said, tabs full open, tossing and turning. I think the worst thing you can do when you're trying to fall asleep is trying to force it. Just.
Oh, yeah, because he'll just tell me, just turn the TV off and close your eyes. And I'm like, no, because if the TV's off and it's totally quiet, that is just like.
That's like saying take your dick off and toss it across the room. It's impossible. Like, it just ain't happening,
I'm just going to lay there and think. I have to be in that semi-sleepy, the TV, and I'll keep the remote close to me because I want the TV off when I go to sleep. But, once I I'm really, really sleepy, I just hit the button and lay the remote, and then I'm out, But if I have to just turn it off cold turkey, I'm just going to lay there.
Yeah, and it's worse.
Yeah.
I think that's, I don't know what normal.
I'm sorry, I don't know what that really had to do with menopause, but
I think it gets worse as you get older. It definitely does. As your progesterone lowers, then you don't get sleepy, as well. And there's a lot of things. But we're almost out of time. I think we're a little over time. So I'm just going to recap really quick that our intimacy and relationships can be affected by physical effects, which we've discussed, emotional and psychological effects like loss of identity and confidence, mood swings, irritability, decreased emotional intimacy. We've talked about relationship dynamics, miscommunications, shift in roles, and opportunity for growth. That on the positive side, menopause can lead to deeper communication, and intimacy if both partners are open and empathetic and willing to do the work. And couples who navigate this transition together often do become closer, but you have to be willing and able. Some people aren't able to navigate the transition. So, as promised, we have a little section what you can do to help. And the first is get medical support like vaginal estrogen, lubricants, hormonal replacement therapy, or non hormonal treatments. There are a lot of options out there. There are not nearly enough. And thankfully, I think we're the last generation that's going to have to struggle with this. I think with peptides and research advancements and equal research for women, I think that these treatments are just going to become better and better. And with technology, it compounds quickly over time. So, I'm hopeful that there's new frontiers of women's health out there.
Yeah.
Other than medical support, you can have open communication. We talked about that. Being honest, compassionate conversations about physical and emotional changes. Be transparent with the people you love and trust. You don't want to just walk around talking about it with everybody, but the people who matter to you the most need to know what you're going through. They need to know how you're feeling and what you're suffering with. I think if they love you and they're really close to you, they're going to want to know, what you're feeling. Counseling, individual or couples therapy to address emotional and sexual difficulties is a great tool. I know it's taboo for a lot of people. The older generations or more ethnic minorities, have a huge taboo on reaching out for therapy or counseling. But just having an objective person who's not close to you, who's not in your situation, who's not for you or your loved one, to just give you an outside perspective, I think is invaluable. I love having that just, on a regular basis to be a sounding board for, am I crazy or is this,
Yeah. There's also some Facebook groups I looked up the other day. You just put in menopause or perimenopausal for women, and there's several support groups on there. And you can even, do it anonymously. They'll let you post questions, like you say, so that you don't know. Is anybody else going through this? What has anybody else done for this? Just a question that you could ask and other women feed off of it.
Yeah, 100%. And, we've both kind of been through a lot of these things, and we enjoy talking to people and helping other people. So you can always email us at girlgotgoalspodcast@gmail.com. And, we're not professionals by any means, but we can be, a sounding board, a shoulder to lean on, just a resource, to help point you in other resource directions, if you find yourself stuck with no support. And lastly, lifestyle adjustments. We're all about this and we talk about this all the time. Regular exercise, a healthy diet, good sleep hygiene, stress reduction can all support hormonal balance and confidence. I was telling Jimmy yesterday, he's had a lot of joint pain and issues over the years and inflammation. And he said recently he's been feeling better. Well, he's taken another supplement and another medication, but he has stopped drinking so much coffee and has started drinking more water. He's like, I've tried to start drinking more water and stop drinking other things throughout the day, like coffee and pre-workout and things, which I've been harping on him forever to do, but it had to be his idea, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, it amazes me how even I think about this in my journey in my life. It amazes me how the basic things in life make such a big difference. If you major on the minors, in this case, it's amazing because like sleep, water, exercise, nutrition, sunshine, friendships, supportive relationships, all these things seem basic. They seem trivial. And I think in today's age, with all the technological advancements and the scientific advancements and all the amazing medications and injections and things that are out there, we forget that people existed healthfully for thousands of years with none of this because they were very good at the basics. Mm-hmm. it was very, it was just life to them, really. They didn't really have to think about the basics because pretty much all they had was water to drink, you know.
That's what
and
I was going to say.
they ate what they grew. They walked everywhere they went. They worked out in the fields. You know, they were physically active. They were outside and getting fresh air and sunshine. They were grounding to the earth. You know, they didn't have to try to connect with nature or to do these things like we do. But it's very easy in our day and age to never touch your feet to the ground, to never get sunshine on your face, you know, to never breathe fresh air, to stay disconnected, you know, from your tribe or your community, and to drink other things other than water, to eat processed foods, you know, to not sleep well, and then caffeinate yourself to where you don't feel tired. You know, it's really easy for us to get the basics very wrong. And if we can just make some lifestyle adjustments and make sure our basic needs are being met, you'd be surprised at how much better you feel.
Yeah. I'm all about the water. I've been harping at Carrie too. He did kind of cut out some of the monsters. We stopped buying them, so that was a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But
yep. Sometimes just not having it in the house. That's how I have to treat chocolate.
I was going to say, that's why I don't buy ice cream.
Yes. Me and my sister were talking about that just yesterday. She was talking about her daughter had made some cookies. And she's like, I ate them until they were gone. And I was like, that's how I am with chocolate. I completely understand how you feel. If it's in the house, I'm going to eat it till it's gone. I can't just eat 2 squares like Jessica. She's so good at just eating like 1 serving and then saving it for later, you know, and staying within her little serving a day. No, if that chocolate bar is in my house, I'm going to eat at least half of it, if not the whole thing. I may eat half of it when I get home from work and then the other half after dinner at night. And then that's 480 calories that day that I did not need, you know, which is why I keep gaining weight. But, you know, that's another subject for another day. But I think this is a good place to end it. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up or that we didn't cover that you can think of?
I think we covered a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot. So,
a lot of rabbit holes too.
Yeah.
Which those are my favorite, our little side conversation, you know. So that's what we do best. We gab.
So hopefully we gave some good insight and some helpful tips to people, and definitely email us. We'd love to hear some comments.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine stop in the gym the other day. I text you and Christina, and she was like, I just want to let you know that I'm listening to your podcast. I listen faithfully. And she's going through, you know, a time like I went through. And so like I told you, it was very invigorating to hear from a listener. You know, I was riding to work just a couple of days before and I was like, is this worth it? It takes a lot of time and a lot of attention for us to do this. And often I feel like, is there anybody listening? Does this matter? Is this worth our time and attention to put this out into the universe? Like, does anybody care? You know? And so it was so meaningful for her to take the time out of her day to stop and tell me that she was listening and that it made a difference in her life. And it made it just so confirming for me that yes, this is important. And yes, it does matter. And yes, there are people listening, even if we can't communicate. That's one thing about podcasts that I kind of hate is like, we can't communicate 2 ways, you know. It's like we talk to each other and we put this out there for listeners, but there's really no way for them to communicate back to us unless they, you know, text us or email us or see us in person or something like that. So, you know, if you could, you know, we do have an email address, girlgotgoalspodcast@gmail.com. And if you know us personally, you can reach out to us, you can text us, you know, see us in person, whatever. But we would truly love to hear that you're listening and that this has made a difference in your life, how it's made a difference, you know, your testimony and questions, you know, feedback, you know, if there are things you want to hear more about or less about, you know, let us know, because we do this for you. You know, we enjoy coming together. We're really good friends and we love talking to each other. It's obvious because we talk way too much. We edit out a lot of crap y'all don't even hear, but you know, it's fun for us, but it's also, we do this for you. So please just let us know what you like to hear, what you're struggling with, and what we can help you with, and don't be afraid to reach out at any time. But until next time, just remember, progress isn't perfect,
but you are. So keep growing.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.